I'm thrilled to be here tonight with a wonderful panel, and we have a moderator to talk to all of you and answer your questions. And there's no question that is off the limits. We will be happy to take them and do our best in answering the questions. I'm going to pass the baton over to our moderator, Isaiah Gregory, who is in Maryland and is attending a local university, and he'll tell you all about himself. And then our panelists will introduce themselves as well. So do we want to start with Isaiah? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Isaiah Gregory. I go to Baltimore Design School where I study architecture. I'm also the SGA president and has been president at that school for over 2 years now. I have two businesses. I'm an entrepreneur, and I hope to major in architecture and a minor in business and interior design. I'll pass it over to Sydney to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sydney Vaughn. I'm a first year at Brown University, currently studying public health. I'm also a part of the 8-year BSMD program at Brown, so I'm hoping to become a pediatric cardiologist in the future. And I'll pass it over to Alyssa.
Thanks, Sydney. So I'm a recent graduate. My name is Alyssa Merletti, and I just graduated in May of 2023 from Oglethorpe University, where I graduated with a major in communications and a double minor in studio art and film and media studies. I did a lot of things on campus. I played tennis and was in Greek life. So I definitely kept myself busy at a small campus. So I'll pass it over to Lexi.
Thank you, Alyssa. Hi, everyone. My name is Lexi. I'm from New York City, and I just graduated in May, like Alyssa, from Cornell. And while I was there, I pursued a major in industrial and labor relations, which is typically a pre-law major, but I ended up switching gears a little bit and became pre-med. And so I'm now planning on attending medical school next fall. And while I was in college, I was fortunate to be able to participate in a variety of extracurriculars too. I also participated in Greek life. I did some running. I did some service organizations. So looking forward to getting into those with our conversation today, but I'll pass the mic back to Isaiah.
Lovely. Great to hear everything that y'all done. Sounds awesome. So I will start off with our first question on the list, and that is, what is the most significant difference between high school and college life that you have experienced so far? If you really want to take a chance at answering that question, feel free to just put a hand up or just speak now.
I'm happy to take this one. So being a first year in college, I'm about 3 months into the college life coming from high school. And I will say that one of the main differences that I've noticed is that in college, you are pretty much driving your own life. You have to be at the forefront of your academic and your social and personal life. So I think that's something that you should like anticipate. It kind of happens because you are here in college on your own. But I will say, I can give an example. So in college, you kind of go by, or in high school, you go by the bell schedule, right? You start at the same time every day, and pretty much your whole week is the same. And then on the weekends, that's when you relax. Versus in college, each day is pretty much something different based on the classes that you have, the clubs that are meeting, the extracurriculars, the sports that you play. And the weekends are also filled with studying too, which kind of sucks, but I feel like that's a part of the college life. And when you have friends that are also studying, I think that makes it really helpful. So yeah, that's what I would say is one of the main differences between high school and college for me.
Awesome. And then Lexi, if you want to answer that question as well.
Yeah, for me, I think one of the biggest realizations was when I first entered college. And that first weekend I was there, I remember I wanted to go off campus to go eat somewhere. And I remember just being so in shock about how I could leave the campus and there was no one who was going to come find me. I didn't have to sign out with anyone like I used to in high school. My mom would come and have to sign me out of school. I could just leave. And it was crazy for me to think that if I just decided to never show up, no one would come chasing after me. So you're really on your own in college. And that was something that struck me almost immediately when I first got there my freshman year. And I'll also tack on to what Sydney said. I think one of the biggest differences is also how your time is really your own. So when I was at home, I would be kind of on my family schedule. I would eat what my family ate. If we had plans over the weekend, I would go along with my family. When you're in college, your time is really your own. From the time you wake up until the time you go to bed, you decide how you spend that time. And I definitely enjoyed that about college. I felt I was almost able to fit more into my day. And it's a really fun experience. So definitely a big difference for me coming from high school.
Awesome. And I just have a little question. So do you guys think that's a positive thing, like the way that you will be in more control of your life, or is it like a negative thing, or is it in the middle?
I
And
would
then
say for me, oh,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
in the middle being like, yeah, it's okay, but I wish that there was other things that could have like occurred before, or some things you wish you could have known before going to college. So yeah.
I would definitely say I love being in control of my schedule. I have like my Google Calendar with everything organized, and I'm surprised to say that, but I love my GCal. I love my Google Calendar because I'm able to kind of factor my life. And I think also in college, the day starts a little bit later for me. So in high school, I was starting at like 7:40 in the morning versus now my first class doesn't start until 10 a.m. And so I can go work out before even going to school, which was not going to happen in high school because it was so early. So I will definitely say it's a positive, that like like Lexi was saying, it's really nice to be able to be in control of your own schedule, and kind of have the liberty to choose what happens throughout your day. So yeah.
Awesome. Lexi, did you also want to answer that question?
Yeah, I agree with Sydney. I do think for me it was a positive. I think it kind of depends how you tackle this change, how you handle it. I know some people, when they have this big shift into college life, it can be a little bit tricky at first. I had friends who wouldn't be doing their laundry, or they would forget to eat sometimes. So I think as long as you adjust to this and make sure that you're taking care of your personal wellness, and putting what needs to be done into your day, that it is a positive change to have that kind of control over your schedule.
Awesome. All right. So now we're gonna move into our second question on the list. What extracurriculars activities are you involved in slash plan on being involved in at your school? Again, go we can start with Lexi since Sydney went first on the first question.
Yeah, so when I was in college, I kind of jumped in headfirst and tried to join almost everything. And I'll talk about this later on as we get to other questions. But once I kind of weeded it down to what I enjoyed, I did one extracurricular activity that was for my medical journey. So kind of helped me to be in a setting that with like-minded students who also wanted to pursue medicine. And that was really helpful for me, especially coming from a program that wasn't traditionally pre-med, with my major being very social science centered. So I really liked that. And then I also did the running club, which was a nice outlet for me. And I was also an ambassador. So I would meet with prospective students or students who had just been admitted to the school. I would show them around a little bit. I would serve on panels, answer any questions. And that was something that I really enjoyed doing. And it helped me to also meet a lot of people who were not my year. I got to meet the younger students who were coming in.
Awesome. One question for you. So as an ambassador, um, so you did like open houses for at your school? Is what you was talking about? Did open houses for the new students?
Yeah. So it was kind of a mix. Sometimes I would meet with prospective students, so students who were touring. There would be high schools that would come to our school and I would talk to them. And then once the students were admitted in the spring, we would meet with the new students and talk with them and answer any of their questions.
Awesome. That's cool. Because I'm actually doing something like that tomorrow for my school. Um, but we can move on to Sydney for answering the second question.
Sure. So one piece of advice my parents gave me when I was coming to college was to really feel comfortable and like kind of adjust to all of the changes that are happening. So I've focused primarily on the classes that I have, and then I've sprinkled in little extracurriculars here and there just to kind of get settled. So first, one thing that I'm involved in is an African dance team called Oja. It's a plug. You guys should definitely follow us on Instagram. But yeah, I really have enjoyed that because it's a creative outlet for me outside of my academics. So I really encourage you all to find a creative outlet that you can really pour your time into, in addition to academics, because it really helps when it's midterm season and you feel really stressed, and there's something for you to do. I'm also a tutor for a program called PAL, which is for students who have neurodivergency or are special needs. And I really just enjoy that. That brings a lot of joy and light into my life. And it's 1 hour per week where I can just pour into someone else's life, which I think is also a way to fill my cup. Um, and then I'm also taking workout classes at the gym, which I also really enjoy. So I'm keeping it simple in terms of extracurriculars, but I think it also helps for me to learn how I learn while I'm starting out my first semester in college.
Sounds great. Seems like y'all keeping active in college and also doing your work. Seems awesome. All right, so we're gonna move on to our third question. It is, what is one piece of advice you would give for managing your time? That's a good one. Oh, and then we can start with Sydney since we didn't like seeing.
Sure. I kind of mentioned it already, but definitely having my Google Calendar has been really helpful. So on Sundays, what I like to do is to kind of that's my reset day. So I choose to like do my laundry and then really organize my week. And like I have something called Google Keep where I organize each of the classes that I have and then like what assignments I have for each of the weeks. Um, I kind of wish I used that in high school because I think it would have been really helpful, but that's just my planner for the week. So I think that's one way to stay organized is to really be proactive with it because things do start to pile up on top of each other, especially during exam season.
Awesome. And then we can go to Lexi. Oh, sorry to say the chat. I'm sorry. Really quickly, sorry, Lexi. Alyssa, I saw in chat that you wanted to
Yeah,
ask.
I can hop in on this one. Yeah, when I like Sydney was saying about the block schedule in high school, like I was very used to that similar structure every day. And with that system, it's kind of easy to just know what you have next, like your test and your homework and things like that. But when you get to college, it gets a little bit more complicated, and you kind of have to cross-examine syllabi with other syllabi and office hours and adjusting that. So I would definitely say to make sure you set some time for office hours and write that into your planner and definitely take that into account when thinking of your homework and thinking about what you want to do for the week. Like you definitely need that extra time to be talking to your professors and making sure you understand the criteria or setting aside time for study group or something like that.
Awesome. And now, Lexi, you have the floor.
Yeah, I completely agree with what both Alyssa and Sydney said. And then I would also add one thing I found when I was in college, kind of going back to the extracurriculars. When I first got there, I was so eager to sign up for everything. And my college sent me a million emails about all of these events. And I went to the club fair and I signed up for anything that I like had any remote interest in. And I also signed up for a lot of things that I felt might look good on my resume. And I reached a point about a month into school where I realized that I was just so kind of overwhelmed by my schedule. And especially during COVID, because I was in college during COVID, it was so easy for me to just log off of one thing at 7 p.m. and log on to something else at 8 p.m. And I found that I was feeling very drained. And so I had to take a look at my Google Calendar. I was also a big fan of Google Calendar and still am. And I was like, what am I not enjoying on this? What am I not looking forward to? I think because the college workload is demanding and there are already obligations you have with classes, it's important to make sure that your time spent outside of classes and studying are doing things that you enjoy. So making sure that your extracurriculars are something you enjoy, because you only have a certain number of hours in the day. So you want to make sure that anytime that you have to spend doing something that you like, you're able to. So I went through my Google Calendar, looked at what I didn't enjoy, and took that off the list, so I could spend it doing something that was either productive for my schoolwork or something that was motivating me internally.
Cool. So quick question. I'm not sure if it's on here. So I'm getting that extracurriculars are supposed to be like your outlet and things that you enjoy. However, I mean, for some students, and well, in my case, some students may also feel the same. Um, I have two extracurriculars that I do throughout the week, and it takes up my whole week. I enjoy both of them, but sometimes it can be a bit draining. So, like, what advice would you give for students like myself, when trying to manage that type of schedule? If you like both of your extracurriculars, but they're both very draining.
Probably answer that one. I would say that when you enter college, your main priority, or at least my main priority when I was in college, was definitely my academics. So despite being involved in Greek life and being in tennis and having to commit 2 hours a day for tennis every day for practice and hours for Greek life, you just kind of have to prioritize your academics and maybe like sit a session out, or just take some time to focus on your mental health and also your studies at the same time. Like, I feel like discovering your priority and making sure you're content with your priority is probably the main thing, because if you're doing all these activities but they don't serve you purpose or make you happy or get you where you want to be in life, then it's not really worth it for you. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Did you guys want to answer those questions, or Sydney and Lexi? Up to y'all on this question only.
I think Alyssa answered that really well. I think something else that I like to think about is like the question, why am I doing this? Kind of like, what is my goal? And I think that can also drive like the reason behind, or like give me encouragement to continue to do things. But I think Alyssa answered it perfectly.
Cool. Lexi, did you want to answer this question, or are you good?
Yeah, I think the advice that's been given has been really good. So I would agree with what was said by Cindy and Melissa.
Awesome. So, see, there's two questions in the Q&A. One question is, how did you choose your major? I think we started off with Sydney for the last question, so we could do Alexia's side.
Yeah, so for me, choosing my major, I obviously picked it in high school. So when I was in high school, I really thought that I was going to do something more centered in law. And so my major in industrial and labor relations, it wasn't super common, but it made sense given that I wanted to pursue law. And as I was continuing in the major, I really enjoyed it, and I decided I didn't exactly want to do law. And when I found my passion for medicine, I actually ended up sticking with it, because I felt that the major, it was still fulfilling me, and also it was something that was applicable. And so I think that's something that I encourage people to consider when they're thinking about a college major, is considering the different paths that you could take with it. And if you're someone like me who's a little bit undecided, thinking about something that, thinking of a major that if you decided later on, maybe this path I have in my mind is not exactly what I want to do, your major would still be able to fuel you into another career path somehow. So I had a lot of friends who had this one passion. I had a friend who was super into physics, and they knew that physics was exactly what they wanted to do. And I was just not like that. I knew I wasn't like that from high school. So for me, it was important to pick something that could be applied to a variety of careers, as I figured out exactly what it was that I wanted to do.
Some love that advice, especially for myself too. Sydney, now it's your turn. You got the floor.
Sure. I think I have a kind of unique situation because Brown has open curriculum where basically we don't have any core requirements. So obviously you do choose a concentration, but there are a lot of classes and departments you can take classes in. So when I went into the university, I chose to focus on public health because it was something I was passionate about, but I also knew I could also take classes in other departments. So I think kind of talking about or kind of piggybacking off what Lexi said, I think it was definitely choosing something that I was like interested in, but also knowing that I had the opportunity to switch because I think it is easier to do it here because the open curriculum. And then secondly, the program that I'm also a part of, you're not required to just study bio, even though you are pre-med. And so I think that's also really encouraging because I have some friends who are on the pre-med track, but are literature majors or it's different things like that. And so, yeah, I would definitely say we're in a very unique situation, but I'm very thankful that we can kind of approach, or I'm able to approach medicine with a very like multifaceted approach. But yeah.
Awesome. And then our next question was, what has you guys' sleep schedule look like in college? And any tips on keeping a consistent sleep schedule to get enough sleep? And we can start off with,
I could start with this one.
oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so my sleep schedule was definitely all over the place when I was in college. I would have these classes in the afternoon, so they would end around like 3 or 4, and then I would take a nap, and then it's like, okay, well then I'll go to sleep at like 12 because I already took a nap. So your sleep schedule will definitely be all over the place, but that post-class nap is kind of necessary, but is it really? Like it has its risks. So I would say just keep track of those naps and just make sure. I always prioritize my sleep over anything. I had an 8 a.m. when I was a freshman, so I would try to get to sleep at like 10, and I would definitely recommend like 8 hours of sleep for sure.
Cool. And now we can go to Sydney for this question.
Yeah, I'm definitely my focus is like definitely getting sleep as well. I think also because you're at college to learn, right? And you won't be able to learn well if you don't get sleep, at least for me. So I really do prioritize getting like consistent hours of sleep. And that might be going to sleep at midnight one night and trying to get those 8 hours or going to sleep sometimes at 2 a.m. But that's not some I don't encourage that. But it does happen. I wasn't that kind of person in high school, but it definitely happens in college because you get stuck doing studying and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely prioritize sleep, just like what Alyssa said.
Awesome. And then lastly, Lexi.
Yeah, for sleep, I think it is all about the balance. And one of the beauties of college as compared to high school is that you don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. every day if you don't want to. So for me, there was one year where I had to have an 8 a.m. Orgo lab. So I made sure that the next day my classes didn't start until 1 p.m. So I could kind of make up for that sleep that I lost the day before. So I would say definitely make sure it is a balancing act. And there are going to be nights where you're just up late, whether it's because you're spending time with friends or you're studying or you're doing work. Sometimes I actually did my best work at night and I did account for that in my making my schedule. So I think it really is just about the balance and making sure that if you don't get as many hours of sleep as you would like one night, that you're able to catch up at some other point in the week.
Cool. I think those actually was pretty great for myself and for the people that was in this the chat today with us. Okay, so we're gonna move right along with the next question. And that is being, what do you spend when do you spend your time with your friends? And do you ever have to say no to like social time to like prioritize your schoolwork or anything that's of most importance? And Lessa, do you want to start off with this question?
I can start. I definitely had a unique experience where my school they love to hang out in the study areas. So it's like all your friends will be there. You'll walk down the hall and you'll see like 5 people. It was a very small school. So once you saw a bunch of people, you got to go say hi before you study. But it would be to a point where it's like, I can't get any studying in this building because there is everybody here. I need to go somewhere quiet, alone, and not be with my friends. So I definitely had to like blow off my friends a little bit so that I could get some studying done. And I love them and all, but nothing is going to get done. So I would definitely recommend separating and figuring out like what your study method is. If it is with your friends, then by all means hang out with your friends. But if you need that quiet time, you need to realize that and then just prioritize that for your own schoolwork because you are paying to be there.
Yes, that's very important. And now we can move on to Lexi. You want to try to mix it up a little bit?
Yeah, I would agree with Alyssa. I think it's very interesting in college because unlike in high school where you see your friends during the day and then you go your separate ways after school or you have to drive to meet up with your friends or something, your friends are all right there. So there definitely were some friends where I would get really great work done with them and we would go to the library together and we would motivate each other. And then I definitely had my other friends who I knew there's just no way we're working together. If we sit next to each other, we're going to be talking the whole time. So it's definitely important to know who you can kind of multitask with, spend time with, but also get work done, and then who you need to reserve for your free time. But I would also say that aside from studying with my friends or just setting that special time away from studying to do fun things with my friends, I also found that I did a lot of kind of my everyday tasks with my friends, which was nice because you're living together. Freshman year, I did laundry with my friends. We would meet up for lunch together during our breaks or grab a quick coffee together. So it's definitely almost a little bit easier to work your friends into that schedule because you are all living together, which is nice.
Awesome. I love that. And lastly, Sydney, how would you respond?
Yeah, I think Alyssa and Lexi summarized it really well. I think I also spend a lot of time with my friends studying, but I also do have to find those moments where like I really need to lock in because I'm doing biology, you know? So there's those moments that definitely come up, but I do really love the beauty of college in that we are doing life together. And I think it helps to really strengthen relationships as well because you are pretty much with each other in like concentrated bursts of time for a really long time. So yeah.
Cool. We have another question in the chat. I see. It says, "What is your best advice for goal setting and accomplishing your goals?" I know you guys kind of piggybacked off of this a little bit with like the Google Calendar, but if you want to bounce back off of that, we can go back to that response. Oh, maybe we can start with Alyssa this time. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely say that my main goal in college was to graduate. So I did accomplish that goal. So but so you can do it. But I would say if you have like some minor goals like getting good grades a certain semester, I would definitely recommend like setting a plan at the beginning of the semester and writing down all of the things that you need to achieve to meet that goal ahead of time. Because once you get into the semester, you're going to be working day by day on your assignments and you're not going to be thinking the steps ahead that you need to be accomplishing your goal. So I would definitely recommend mapping it out ahead of time before you get too busy and before you know it, finals week is at your fingertips and you have to start studying and you haven't set it up. So that's what I would recommend.
Awesome. Lexi, do you want to take over now?
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Alyssa. Something else I did for small, like short-term goals was a to-do list. I lived with my to-do list, whether it was jotting things down on my phone, or I also had just a paper one on my desk that I would write things down. So that was super helpful for me and would help me to prioritize. And I think that's something that's really important in goal setting is when you get down to finals week and you have all of these assignments and projects due at once, obviously you want to do well on all of them. And so you run into this question of, okay, how do I do everything and do well on everything, which is hopefully the goal. So it's important to really prioritize, figure out how you need to spend your time. And I would say that to-do list definitely helps me with my prioritizing. And another part of goal setting for me was also just making sure I made the most of my college experience, because it was something that my family and friends had talked to me about being such an impactful time. And I really didn't realize that until I got to senior year and I realized, oh no, I only have a year left. And so my friends and I even made a to-do list of just fun things we wanted to do or experiences or restaurants nearby that we wanted to try. So would definitely emphasize the to-do list.
That's really cool. And Sydney, last response.
Yeah, I think for me, one way that I've really been setting long-term goals is meeting with a really good advisor. So, I have my advisor for all 4 years, and she's was actually in the medical school program that I was in. So I really think that I'm thankful for her because she's able to tell me what classes to take, when to take them. So I really, if you're hoping to set long-term goals, really develop a strong relationship with your advisor, because they can see things both from a social and an academic perspective. Um, and then also I created like a 4-year plan on Google Sheets just specifically for classes, to kind of help me figure out the path that I'm trying to follow for both my concentration and my passions, in academics. So I would definitely say, for me, it's like actually creating something that I can visualize and really keep track of, and also actively edit, throughout time. But just keeping things organized has really helped me with goal setting. And then, like Lexi was saying, with the day-to-day, a to-do list really is helpful, especially when you get to check off a box. It's one of the most satisfying things ever because you know you've accomplished something. So I would definitely say a to-do list is great for short-term goals as well.
I really love those ideas. We have a couple more questions in the chat. However, I just want to save time, so I'm going to try to finish the main ones that we have. And then if we have any more time, we can ask the last questions in the box. Okay, so the next question is, how did your teachers in high school prepare you for college life? And what are your professors like now in college? And we can start off with Lexi this time.
Yeah, so in high school, I think I had a balance of teachers. It was kind of a spectrum for me. I had some who were super friendly and were almost like my friend. We were a little too friendly. And then I had others who really were strict and were very on their game with ensuring that we were prepared for college. I even had one professor who, for 2 years, refused to call me Lexi. He called me by my full name, Alexandra, because he said, when you get to college, people aren't going to care about your nickname. So fortunately, when I actually went to college, I realized that that wasn't the case for every professor. And I would say it definitely, for me at least, continued to be on that spectrum. When I was in a smaller class, I had professors who really wanted to get to know me. They would call me by my nickname. And then when you're in a big lecture, unfortunately, there's just not that close connection. So your professor might not even know who you are. So I think having that spectrum in high school was definitely good for me in college because I found that my professors really varied from class to class.
Cool. Sydney, you want to take over next?
Sure. I think in high school, my school really encouraged us to take like AP classes, and I think that was really helpful, for kind of understanding the speed in which college classes go. It was almost a little bit faster in college, but I'm really thankful for that because my teachers were teaching us how to learn and kind of teaching us our learning styles early on in high school so that we could take some of those practices in college. And then I would also say that, it was really helpful, like kind of what Lexi was saying, to know or to go into college aware that there will be those 200, 300 person classes. But I think one way to kind of not just be a number is to go to office hours, which has been really, really helpful for me because now, even though I am a number in those 200, 300 person classes, my teacher knows me by name. to the point where after an exam 2 days ago, my professor was like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "Wow, this is encouraging because she knows who I am." So I would definitely say develop those strong relationships, and you will be successful. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Now Alyssa, how was your experience with this?
Yeah, I came from a small school, so I didn't have those 200, 300 classes, but so it was kind of more similar to high school. And I would say that the classes that most prepared me for college in high school were AP classes and dual enrollment classes. So those teachers that I had in high school were the most stringent and gave me the most work, and it definitely did prepare me for college. And nobody really knows, but once you get to college, you're writing 5 to 10 page papers that you never really wrote in high school. So your teachers can't really prepare you for that other than telling you how to write a good paper and prepare you to write 5 pages. So I would definitely say that AP classes, dual enrollment classes will get you to have a taste of what college life is like for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so we're gonna move right along to our next question. I love your responses. This was very thorough. Our next question is, how much time per week do you spend studying, and what tips do you have for students who are adjusting to the workload? And we can start with Sydney.
That's a great question. I was like trying to count in my head how many hours a day I study. I'll definitely say it's like small bursts of studying in between classes or like clubs or different activities that I have throughout the week. And then if I have an exam, let's say on a Tuesday, that week before, I'm pretty much really pouring in a lot of time into studying. And then I think the second part of your question was like, what tips do you have for adjusting the workload? And for that, yeah, for that, I would definitely say, um, it's it will feel overwhelming at the beginning, so just mentally prepare for that because you're going from kind of a high school mindset of, like, your classes or your coursework ends on Friday, right? Versus, in college, it's things carry over to the next week, but I think Alyssa kinda mentioned this earlier, but looking at the syllabus is really helpful because you can anticipate, the workload. It's not like assignments are just gonna pop up on you because the professor has already laid out what's going to happen. So kind of orienting what I like to do, so for each unit is just kind of look, okay, these are the things I need to get done and kind of planning it into my calendar. I keep saying planning, but planning is really helpful to prevent becoming overwhelmed. And in those moments when you do feel like overwhelmed, I think it's also important to take some time to pause because just as much as you need to get the work done, you also need to be well rested and like mentally okay to be able to do the work as well.
Awesome. Sorry for
Yeah,
the way.
I
And oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I can answer that one. So, I basically spent a good amount of time studying on top of my already activities. So there's a lot of balancing that you have to do with your studying and figuring out what time you like to study the best and where you like to study is all questions that you'll figure out yourself. Like it's a lot different than in high school when you're just doing it at home and after school. Like that's probably your designated time, but in college, you have to find those gaps where you have that time to study. And if you like to study in the day, if you like to study at night, it's all stuff you have to figure out. And so that's really what I would give advice on is just take like the first couple of weeks of college to just figure out what you do like. And even if you don't like what you start out studying with, like you still have 4 years of time there that you can learn what you do like to do and how you study the best.
Awesome. And then I'm gonna take the last response and then move on to our next question. Lexi?
Yeah, I would definitely emphasize studying during those smaller breaks that you have. For me, I think studying really varied from week to week and also from semester to semester based on what the classes I took. So some semesters you'll have some trickier classes, and then others you might find that your workload is not as much as it was before, and you might give yourself a little bit of a break, which is nice. And then throughout the semester, I found the same thing. Some weeks I would be like, wow, I feel like I have so much time on my hands. I'm like not busy. I can go hang out with my friends. And then I would run into other weeks where it felt like all of my projects or my papers or assignments had been thrown into that one week, and I was really busy and working most hours of the day. But like Alyssa and Sydney said, I think it's really important to utilize those smaller breaks that you have during the day. So unlike high school where you're there from like 8 to 3, you might have an hour or so between your classes. And so even if you can't get your whole paper done during that time, maybe you can get a reading done or a smaller part of the paper done. And I think it's important, like Alyssa said, to find your own schedule and routine, figure out what works for you, what you can get done in those smaller chunks of time so that at the end of the day, there's hopefully not as much on your plate. And then one more tip I would have for students is to reach out to other students you know who took the class. I found that that was really helpful for me. Finding other students who could give me recommendations for how to study, because sometimes more studying isn't always better. Sometimes it's more so about strategizing and figuring out, okay, what's the best study method rather than spending hours and hours reading a book or something. So I think by getting that advice, you can prepare yourself both for the workload and then how to tackle that workload and succeed in the course.
Awesome. Love the responses. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on to our next question. It is, what is one thing you know now that you wish you knew in high school? And we can start off with Sydney.
I think that I kind of went into college knowing that it was a lot of like independence and freedom, but actually being here, it's like tangible. And I don't think that I realized that as much. Like my parents are actually like in a different state, you know? And so it's like it's hard to kind of navigate that at first, but I'm glad that I have like a support system. So I think someone else's question in the Q&A was asking like how you maintain those family relationships. And I think it's important to still call your parents because they still can give you really, really great advice, even though they're far away. So even though you are alone, you're not alone in the sense of like you are physically alone, but there are people in there, there's a support system around you. So I think that's kind of what I wish I knew in high school, is that college is you do it by yourself, but you do it with a group of people as well.
Lexi, you can answer.
Yeah, one thing I wish I could tell my high school self would be to take a deep breath and calm down a little bit, because in high school I was so stressed out about my future, and I still am. So this is also advice to my current self. But I would sit in high school and I would kind of like run through all this different scenarios of where am I going to go to college? What am I going to do with my life? I have to pick this exact major now and stick with it so I'm prepared for a good career. And I think that it's important to remember that college is about exploring. So I think it's important for high schoolers to be okay with understanding that they might change paths in college. They might find that something they like in high school they don't like anymore. I think it's really important to be open to the idea that even though you may sit there and plan for your life to go one way, you might run into hurdles or new experiences that are going to change your experience. So it's important to be open to that and to not stress out too much, because everything will be okay and will work out.
Love that advice. And Alyssa, I want to take us away.
Yeah. I think definitely I have learned a lot in all of my 4 years of experience. And I would say that even though high school was so long ago, it feels like, um, the one thing that I wish that I knew in high school was that you will get through it. So there's like definitely had been times in my life where it's like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult that I feel like I will not continue. And here you are, 4 years later, you're perfectly fine worrying about something else. You will always be worrying about something else, but it's always nice to like look back and reflect on things that you were worrying about in the past, and now is a very small hurdle that you overcame very easily. So I think just being proud of yourself and how far you've come is very important. And you don't really know that when you're younger, but when you get older, you're like, okay, I can survive. I can be normal. So yeah.
Awesome. And we're gonna take our time now to answer some questions from the Q&A to kind of close up this webinar. So the question here is, what's been the funniest moment during your college experience? And we can start off with Lexi this time.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible so other people have time. But my senior year, my friend asked me if I wanted to take a ballroom dancing class with her, just for fun. We had never done it before. We were like, yeah, senior year, we'll do it. So we were going every week to this big gymnasium where people were all set up in partnerships dancing together. So we figured, okay, this is ballroom dancing. And then unfortunately, like halfway through the semester, I got COVID. And so I had to email the professor. I'm so sorry I can't come in today, but I'll be there next week once I'm better. And she sent me this email and she said, like, Lexi, I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't come to a single one of my classes. And I responded to her and I was like, oh my goodness, there must be some mistake. Like, this is my name. Are you sure? Like, I've been coming to every class, I've been signing in. And it turned out that I wasn't going to the ballroom dancing class I'd been signed up for. My friends and I were walking into swing dancing, which was right next door. They were literally in two rooms, and someone had just on the first day directed us into the wrong room. And we had like gaslit ourselves almost the whole semester because we were like, oh, well, you know, we would get emails from the class and they'd be like, okay, today we're going to do the waltz. And we were like, this doesn't really seem like the waltz, but we're in upstate New York. Maybe it's like their version of the waltz. But halfway through the semester, we figured out we'd been going to the wrong class the whole time and we were taking swing dancing instead. So fortunately, we explained it to them. We looked a little dumb, but it's a funny story to tell now. And they let us take swing dancing instead of ballroom dancing and we got our credit.
I'm so sorry that happened, but I'm grateful that you got your credits. Wow. Okay. Sydney, do you want to take this chance to answer a question now?
Sure. The funniest story that's happened just in one semester was like 3 days into college. I remember it was this group of my friends and I, and we were like, we're gonna go to Target, which sounds like not very difficult at all. But we were like, we're gonna take an Uber, we're gonna go off campus, we're gonna get what we need, and we're gonna get back. But we took an Uber and didn't realize we went into a different state. And so we were kind of just right, because I'm in Rhode Island and Massachusetts is so close. And we ended up stuck in Massachusetts because the Ubers wouldn't cross state lines. So we were kind of trying to find a way to get back on the bus, trying to find a way to get back on an Uber. And eventually we just had to like split up and go our separate ways. But I remember I was like, this independence is great, but also this is the first time I've ever felt stranded. So that was one of the funniest moments that's happened thus far.
Happy you survived that moment. And now, Alyssa, you want to take us away with this question?
Yeah, both of those are so hilarious. I probably have so many, but one that I can think of from my past senior year is we were on a trip to Tennessee. So Oglethorpe is in Georgia. So we were in Tennessee and we had this super late tennis match that ended up finishing like around 11 or 12 and at night. So we were stopping by McDonald's on the way back just to get some team dinner. And my coach asked me to get something out of the car, or I asked for the keys to get something out of the car, out of the van. And I turned the van on and locked the keys in there. Yeah, so then I went inside and had a like, it was almost like a walk of shame. They're like, where are the keys? Why is the van on? And where are the keys? And I was like, they're in the van. And so we had to call USAA to get it out. And there it was actually funny because there was a cop in the McDonald's and we were like, hey, can you help us? And he was like, actually, we don't do that. So he was there and could not help us. So we ended up getting back at around like 2 in the morning when we would have gotten back at like 12 or 1. So it was a humbling experience.
These was all some very, very interesting and entertaining stories that was told. We're gonna move on now. Next question from the Q&A. Alyssa, Sydney, I'm sorry. I know you kind of briefly answered this one, but it was, what would be your best advice for relationships, for like maintaining relationships in college, to be able to focus on school while also growing those relationships? And Cindy, if you want to answer that question more thoroughly, go ahead.
Sure. I think I kind of talked about family a little bit earlier, but I think like talking about more like friends back home, I've really tried to be intentional with like maintaining those relationships. If I think of like a moment with someone, I just text them like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. How have you been doing?" So I really think that's helped me to stay connected with people. If I see a video on Instagram or a picture and I'm like, "Oh, this reminds me of them," I send it. So I think that's been a way that I really stay connected with people. And then in terms of having like intentional time with my friends here at school, um, beyond just studying, I did start like scheduling it on Google Calendar, but I like create like a shared schedule time and it's like, okay, this is the time we all are going to like hang out, spill the tea, have fun. So I think that's been a really great way to just be intentional about the time I have with my friends and also with my family is really to schedule it so that I can pause and really be present in the moment.
Awesome. I love that advice. Lexi, you want to answer next?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And maintaining relationships with friends, family, and significant others during college was really important for me too, especially because I was super close with my family. So I always made sure that I had some time at the end of the day because that was something that was important to me. I would talk to them, I would FaceTime, or we would talk on the phone. And I think you can also find those gaps in your day too and use that. I would talk to my mom all the time while I was walking from one class to another, or say, "Hey, I'm going to call you in a few minutes when I'm out of class." So it's just about prioritizing and making sure that you do schedule that time for yourself in the day, whether it's in between classes, or I used to like to do it at the end of the day when I had everything done before I would go to bed. So just really prioritizing and making sure that you are staying in touch with those who are going to support you, because when it gets tough in college, they can kind of remind you that you have that support system who's cheering for you, even if they're not physically there.
Lovely. And then Alexa, I'm so sorry. Alyssa, um, your turn.
Yeah, well, my family was definitely pretty close to me. They were only like 3.5 hours drive. So after my first semester, I ended up getting a car so that I could commute back and forth. And so I made sure to find those gaps in my schedule that I could go home to see my family. And so I made that a priority for myself whenever I was able to drive back home. But that was good advice, Sydney and Lexi, for those that are a little farther.
I agree. All right, and now our last and final question it is, what has been your favorite part about college life? And let's do a random. We can start with Alyssa.
I think my favorite part about college life was, and this might be corny, developing as a leader. So I would definitely say from my freshman year, if you saw my freshman year self, like you would definitely laugh. So it's crazy to see Sydney here as a freshman looking like perfect as ever. Like I cannot imagine the limit does not exist for how much you will grow. So I would definitely say just learn about yourself and blossom into yourself, because it's definitely a beautiful 4 years that you will cherish forever.
So, and Sydney, we move right on to you.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. Also for me, Alyssa, I'll definitely be taking that. I think for me, I've really, really loved exploring my passion. Um, in college, there's more time to be able to do that. So I knew I wanted to go in as a public health concentration, but I've also been able to take a class called Food, Religion, and Politics in South Asia, which is not related to public health at all. But I've found aspects to incorporate it into my passion for medicine. And so there's just different classes that I've been able to take now that are overlapping, and I really loved like growing in knowledge and kind of yeah, really understanding who I am and kind of why I believe that like what my calling is on this. Yeah.
Awesome. And lastly, Lexi, take us home.
Yeah, my favorite part about college life would have to be the friends that I made, which also sounds corny. But I think when you're just surrounded by people and you're kind of all in this experience together, you really build relationships. And I built relationships unlike I've been able to build in any other part of my life. And I think about all the times that I was stressed about an organic chemistry exam, but then I would walk out and all of my other friends who had taken the exam would be there and we would just commiserate together. So I think it really is those friendships, and there's something about college and being away and on your own for the first time that helps you build connections with people deeper than in other areas of your life.
Awesome. On my behalf, that was all the questions I have for you guys. I really appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day to come and answer a few questions for us. I have nothing else to say, but thank you, and I really appreciate it. And I will pass it back to Alyssa if y'all don't have anything else to say.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Isaiah. We're so happy to have an ambassador come back and serve on this panel and help moderate us. So thank you so much for helping us out with that.
No problem, of course.
Thank you guys. Our panelists were amazing. Really appreciated and made me proud to listen to your answers. I appreciate all of our viewers, our members tuning in tonight. And I wanted to thank you all for joining us. I hope you all have an amazing Thanksgiving. I can't believe we're talking about that, but it's just a very short way away. And enjoy your family, enjoy the food. Sydney, enjoy all your friends going back to Texas and telling them all about your beautiful leaves and the things that you're seeing in the Northeast. But really do cherish the food, the time, the family. It goes by fast, so those 4 years of college. So treasure it. And Lexi, we'll see you in a couple days.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing any members in the audience at Scholars Day.
Yes, Scholars Day is just a couple of days away, so we hope we see many of you. And if not, make plans to join us for the next one. Thank you.
Bye,
Good night.
everyone. Thank
right.
you. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
All right, have a good night.